Iran issued a warning to President Trump Monday that they are ready to go to war if the U.S. interferes in the deadly protests that are happening there.
Since the protests began in late December, more than 500 people have reportedly been killed, according to human rights groups. That caught the eye of President Trump, who in recent days has hinted at possible military action to protect the protesters. Now here's Trump on Air Force One Sunday night.
There seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent, if you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it. And we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination.
Trump also announced yesterday on Truth Social that he was imposing an immediate 25% tariff on goods from any country that does business with Iran. That includes dozens of countries like China, India, Russia, and Turkey. The Iranian foreign minister said during a speech on state television Monday night, quote, "We are not looking for war, but we are prepared for war, even more prepared than previous war." Apparently referencing the brief war with Israel last year, during which the U.S. bombed Iran's nuclear facilities. He continued, quote, "We are also ready for negotiations, but negotiations that are fair, with equal rights and mutual respect."
But that hasn't seemed to deter the president. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters yesterday he has spoken to Elon Musk about utilizing his Starlink satellite network to help the protesters there circumvent a government-imposed internet blackout. According to the Washington Post, the blackout has gone so far as to partially jam Starlink services, but Musk is reportedly fully on board with efforts to restore service, reportedly telling engineers at SpaceX to work on a solution. Meanwhile, some of the president's allies on Capitol Hill are urging him to go even further than just offering internet support to the protesters. Take a listen to Lindsey Graham over the weekend.
Donald Trump pick the people over the Ayatollah. Donald Trump says the best way to make Iran great again is for the protesters to win and the regime to come down. How do you do that? Whatever action we're going to take, Mr. President, needs to embolden the protesters and scare the hell out of the regime. If I were you, Mr. President, I would kill the leadership that are killing the people. You've got to end this.
Wow. First with the trade sanctions, the new 25% tariff, is that going to apply to countries that only trade with Iran for humanitarian goods? Like, there's a whole question there. He just says things and then has no laid out implementation. And also, China is their biggest trading partner. So we're actively now agitating back and forth with somebody that's already an adversary. And then I peel back the layers to why we're even in like this contentious space, which we back and forth throughout history have been with Iran. But right now specifically, it's because we gotten involved in the 12-day war that was on behalf of Israel last year. And so is this really the U.S. best interest to continue pushing forward, agitating a bunch of people that we don't have the best relationships with on behalf of Israel's decision to,
I think we're beyond that now. They're prepared. Their government is cracking down and is prepared to execute thousands of people for the crime of protesting. They got to back down, or I don't know, we might do something. Trump said no new wars, and that was a very appealing slogan. And I have been concerned about how the foreign policy has become far more interventionist than Trump intended, and I think that's a bad thing. I was skeptical of previous actions against Iran, skeptical of Venezuela. I'm skeptical of a lot of things, but I don't know. We're at where we're at, and the Iranian government can't just mass execute protesters with impunity and face no consequences. That's what Donald Trump is saying, and there's a lot of international support for that position. There's a lot of American support for that position. We don't want to stand idly by as people who want freedom, democracy, human rights, women who don't want to be under Islamic extremism, people in a once westernized liberal country advocating against a religious authoritarian regime that is trying to kill them. I don't know. The time might pass for them to say, okay, leave us alone and we'll leave you alone. Okay, you got to leave your people alone too, is what Donald Trump is saying.
And I certainly agree that what's happening in Iran is disgusting and dehumanizing, and it certainly should not be acceptable. I'm just looking at the fact that Iran has been fighting its leadership for the last decade, most recently probably 2009 2019, 2021, 2022. Like, this is a recurring theme of trying to get rid of leadership. And the last time they actually overthrew leadership was in 1979 during the Iranian Revolution. And so this is something in the region that needs to be settled. And the U.S. getting involved, like our guest yesterday, Trita Parsi, mentioned, it might not lead to a long-term positive effect. We might leave the region even more destabilized than it is now, because unless we plan on having boots on the ground and watching that regime change go fully through and successfully and staying there, and we did stay in other countries for a long time, and then still when we left, we see the Taliban take over Afghanistan and other incidents happen that make it feel like, wow, all those years, what is the return on investment if the people still went back to having the Taliban as leadership? Did we accomplish what we went to and sought out to do? And so I am just weary that the U.S. getting involved and listening to Trita yesterday. He's like, I don't know that that's going to provide the long-term solution that Trump thinks it is. And it's the right thing to say that we shouldn't accept these killings happening. It's the right thing to say that the people should rise up. But they've risen up multiple times in the past. And so what is the long-term international solution that maybe requires more than the U.S. to get involved?
There were not masses of people rising up in Afghanistan, in Iraq, when we went in there to displace the regimes. This is a little bit different. There are mass protests taking place. There's an appetite for different leadership. Now, you're right. We could, if we killed them all, and then maybe people who are just as bad or even worse come to power. That's the lesson we've learned in the Middle East, and that's the reason not to do it. The reason to take it a little bit more seriously is that thousands of people are about to be executed. Thousands.
Right, and
that's what human rights watchers say is going to happen. And that's a pretty steep price to pay for taking no action.
Iran is also the weakest that it's been in a long time, particularly because of its back and forth with Israel for the last 2 years. So it's in a very weak position. So hopefully with seeing this conversations, even though they have egregious behavior over there, seeing that President Trump says they are having dialogue about possibly coming to a solution here, I think the best case scenario would be that they stop backing down, stop killing protesters, and figure out a way forward to try to begin to repair the relationship with the U.S. You have to know when you are the smaller entity, when you have less power. But I think the threats and the tariffs, I don't know that that's going to stop what looks like a belligerent regime.
I agree. I'm very skeptical of tariffs and sanctions leading to change. They were a contributing factor in Assad's downfall in Syria, so maybe that's an example where a sanction regime did work. I think a lot of times sanctions just they immiserate the people, and then the idea is the people will blame the regime. Sometimes that means they just blame America for immiserating them. But here, we have directed action, mass protesting against the regime. The regime is weak. I don't know.
And also, this whole entire protest that's been happening the last few weeks is because of the economy there, how poor the economy is doing. So also the tariffs will in turn, if oil is the biggest export for at least for China, and that affects a lot of people that work in Iran. Well, now we have people that were already in misery with the economy experiencing that even more. So as we think about every solution and way forward, the administration should consider what is the most helpful to the people if this is a humanitarian effort.
Yeah. Next up, Senator Mark Kelly is suing Pete Hegseth over censure and potential demotion. We'll talk about that coming up next. Stay with us.